Welcome back, y'all. All right, man. Gallagher Premiership Rugby. Man, this might be going under, and this is really, really big. So, if you guys don't know, Gallagher Premiership Rugby is the professional rugby league based in the UK. It's 10 teams, used to be 13 teams that are competing throughout the year for a championship, yada, yada, yada. That part's very easy to understand. It's teams that are from the Wales, England, Scotland, and Ireland. And so this was one that was really special because of the fact that the person who put together this financial sheet of what the revenue was for rugby really wanted to get an idea of what the elite rugby levels are looking like. What's the business model looking like? How is it working? Can it maintain itself? And it was really disturbing to kind of see exactly how much it doesn't add up numbers wise. And it speaks a little bit of volume of what we got whenever we talked with Joanne Yap, who was part of one of the teams that shut down, the Worcester Warriors, and being able to understand from her positioning why they shut down, which was these clubs, especially after COVID, were requiring, like, they typically were held together by really rich owners, and when really rich people were losing money in businesses, they just were not able to maintain. And so you're looking at the numbers on this, and you're just like, yo, you guys are not doing great at all, despite the fact that even a report that we read about the last time we talked spoke that basically 60% of revenue for rugby comes from France and the UK, Premiership Rugby being a greater part of that. That's wild. That is wild. And now obviously they're talking about from TV deals and sponsorships, but still from the UK and from France. Really, they specifically said England and France. So let's go into this a little bit to talk about, like, what was the breakdown about this and how this all really came together. All right. So I'm going to go ahead, throw this up. So the research for this is being done by a company named Leonard Curtis. And as they stated in their report, Leonard Curtis is a company with 30 years of restructuring and turnaround expertise, a multidisciplinary professional service group, has 27 regional offices across the UK and Channel Islands, employs 300 people. The company specializes in restructuring and insolvency, funding and legal services for SMEs, larger corporates and their advisors. So basically, they got a professional auditor to be able to go in and take a look at what was going on with Premiership Rugby. Right. So without going into the full details, there's a slew of people who were working on this. We're talking about 3 people plus panelists, which was about 5 people altogether that were working on this. So let's go through the breakdown. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the link to the total report in the description. I'm going to put the link in the description. You can go ahead and read it yourself. I just want to go over some of the highlights of the stuff that I thought were particularly interesting to me, so that we can kind of work and see how this all came to fruition. So first and foremost, we talk about the revenue. All right. Revenue that was made from the 22-23 season compared to what it was pre-pandemic. So for whatever it's worth, I really appreciated the way that they did this because they gave some good explanations as well, so that you just weren't kind of like lost in the sauce. So as of the 22-23 season, that the season, not last season, but the season beforehand, I think we're just still yet to be known on what the revenue is for it. The highest earning revenue generating club was the Harlequins, followed by the Saracens, then Northampton, and then Leicester. All right. Now, it's very interesting because basically between and Exeter was at 5th, really close to Leicester. So Harlequins made 26,814 pounds for the year. Saracens made 23,207 pounds for the year. Northampton, 21,956 pounds. Leicester, 21,909 pounds. 909,000 pounds, and then subsequently Exeter at 21,469 million pounds. So 469,000 pounds altogether. So like these clubs aren't making obviously that much. We know this. They already got like salary caps of like 5 million, I think, and that cap had been dropping precipitously since then. But compared to where they were in 2019, most of the clubs had shown improvement. Now, the worst three clubs as of 2023, because the three clubs that did not make it out of the pandemic, which were London Irish, the Wasp, and Worcester Warriors, obviously were unable to record any income going into 2022, 2023 because they don't exist anymore. But the worst teams are Newcastle Falcons at 11,221,000 pounds, Sale Sharks at 11,735,000 pounds, and the Bristol Bears at 14,900,000 pounds. Bristol Bears definitely got a jump. Basically almost double their money from 2018, 2019, which was at 9,392,000 pounds, and then Sale and Newcastle increased by a million, and Newcastle has decreased in their revenue. All right, this is just the revenue, so we haven't even started taking out the expenses yet. And one of the things that they said on this is in their explanation. They said, as we already saw, the Harlequins at 26.8 million lead the way in the Rugby Union Revenue League for 2022-2023, followed by the Saracens. And the Sale Sharks and Newcastle Falcons are the lowest clubs in the revenue table, and the gap between the top and the bottom revenue is almost 2.4 to 1. It's double and a half. Like the difference, which is crazy. All right, you think with revenue sharing there would be something, but apparently, again, there's other factors, and thankfully, again, they talk about these factors. Right. All right, so they go into the wage chart. All right, and this is where it starts getting interesting to me. All right, so for the Harlequins, and they broke it down by the percentages of it. For the Harlequins, who we saw had the highest revenue, they also have the highest wages, or at least of 2022-2023 season. There's a 15,177,000 pounds, which makes up 57% of their revenue is wages, right? The Saracens, who also we saw a number 2, are at 14,932,000 pounds, and that made up almost 64% of their revenue. Bath, which I think was like 5th in revenue generation, right? They were lower than Exeter, if I remember. Yeah, they were lower than Exeter. Theirs is 14,886,000, and it's 75% of their revenue. Now let's drop it down to where the lower end of it, and this is where it started getting really wild to me. Because you got something like the Bristol Bears, who were like the 3rd worst revenue generating club. They used basically 87% of their revenue on just wages. And these wages, we're talking about, these are wages for total staff costs, for professional teams. So that's the players, the staff, all that, right? Like Sale Sharks, who are bottom 2, used 92% of their revenue on just wages. Like, I want to put this into comparison alone. And I know like the NFL is a much bigger entity, but like the players alone are getting like 49%, right? I would argue that the total wages that an NFL team puts on just salary probably is much closer to like 53% than it is to 57%, let alone 92% of your total wages. 92%. Actually, let's find out what is the total. The total percentage. You know what? Let's put it up on the board. I like making sure. I like making sure you guys are able to join with me on this. The total percentage of revenue that an NFL team pays in wages. So let's see. It's not quite where we're looking at. Let's see. Okay, so we're just talking. This is just salary cap. Salary cap. NBA, which has much closer to 50%. It's 50% in the salary cap for the players. Today's free, and it basically said the NFL runs more so about 47%. Okay. Yeah. So let's say arguably it's, if we're talking 47% of the total cap, 49% really, I think, after their most recent CBA, then maybe the probably doesn't surpass 52-53% when it comes to just wages on its own, and the NFL makes a profit. So when you're looking back at what the percentage take of the percentage take of these companies, of these teams for Premiership, this is wild. 92% on just salary is insane. Is insane. Absolutely insane. So, and then it even took a look at the ones with the teams that went to default, like the London Irish, where they said, all right, so cost control, both Harlequins and Saracens top both the minimum revenue and the wage tables, although the wages to revenue ratios are 57% and 64% respectively, are also some of the best in the industry, giving them a buffer on cost control that the salary cap should naturally provide. And then we look at Newcastle Falcons, which the Newcastle Falcons using 82% of their wages and still being a horrible team is so unsettling. With even like Sale Sharks being like 92% and you still don't have, like, you're not winning well. Like, I know these are a couple years old, but like if we look at like the chart for where these teams are now, like where their standings are this year in for the 2024-2025 season, no, you can say a lot changes, but that much has not changed. There hasn't been that much of a change. So, like, you have Sale that is 8 out of 10 in the standings right now. You have the Harlequins that are 4 out of 10. At least they're coming, but that's not who we were worrying about. Newcastle is the worst team in the league. And Bristol Bears. Bristol right now is 3rd. Okay. Hold on. Let's see where the standings were. Well, okay, let's finish up the look through, and then we'll go to where they stand at the end of those seasons. So, okay, so this is the one that made it most important, which was the losses. What were the losses for these years, and who made money and who didn't, right? So, spoiler alert, nobody made money. All right, nobody made money. So basically, the profit loss denotes a club's overall profit to loss taken from a final line of the income statement. It is the calculation of all incomes minus all expenditures for any given year. A higher and positive figure is more desirable, while only the data in this table is from 2018 to 2022, 2023. Is also other ones have been included in context. So let's let's look at this. All right, Gloucester is the one that had the best outcome, right? Gloucester was basically in the middle of the expenditures of it all. They only lost £544,000 in their season. Northampton, secondly, lost £1,064,000 for that 2022-2023 season. Leicester coming in third, losing 1.5 million, and Newcastle Falcons losing only 2.36 million, which is surprising. With the team, okay, if those are the worst, then those are the best outcomes of losses of debt that of nonprofit, let's say. Then who had it worst? The Saracens at the bottom, losing £5.29 million on the year. All right. Bristol Bears are only second worst with £4.55 million. And Bath Rugby at £4.429 million. That's crazy. That's crazy, right? I want to see what was the standings for the 2022-2023 year. So for the 2020, this is the for the 2022-2023 season final standings for these teams. All right. Ended with Saracens came out number 1. They won the championship. Sale at number 2, Leicester at 3, Northampton at 4. Compare that to their losses. Northampton is the one that got the best outcome out of it all. Northampton got the best outcome of it at all because they were 4th and only had a loss of £1.064 million. Gloucester, while they only lost £564,000, which is now comparatively sounds crazy, they were 10th in the league that year, right? Leicester Tigers, they were 3rd. So, you can kind of see that some of these were wait, I don't think this is the right year. Hold on a second. Hold on a second right here. Hold on. Because yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, the London Irish. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this is correct. It was correct. But yeah, like it's crazy. It's crazy on how this goes. So I think let's see. Let's go to 32. Then it breaks down into the debt division, and that's like the accumulated debt over time, which all these teams are have this. All right. So I could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on about this because this is an incredible text. But ultimately, the question is, what does any of this mean? And just for the one last thing before we go, the balance sheet overall. All right, we're talking about like with all the debt, with all the revenue, all the everything that comes in. What is the final balance sheet for these teams? And out of them, 3 teams are relatively into positive. That is Leicester Tigers, Northampton Saints, and Gloucester Rugby at 51.78 million pounds, 16.553 million pounds for Northampton Saints, and 7.815 million pounds for Gloucester Rugby. And everybody else is completely in debt. That means of 10 teams, 3 have assets enough to be maintenance, just to be able to keep going. Everybody else is just in the red consistently. Right? Which speaks to the business problem of it all, right? It speaks to the business of it all. But what does it all mean? So the reason we look at that and we see it is that so many of these rugby clubs basically run off of this, like, these are the premier business modeling. Like, okay, if the top guys who right now are literally, insolvent, like they could go bankrupt at any point in time, like their last 3 teams, London Irish Wasps and Worcester Warriors did, then what is stopping them now? And it's really literally paycheck to paycheck. It's day to day, just knowing that there's somebody who is willing to pay the cash for it. But it also speaks of volume that they've made the game in terms of its scalability so much scarier right now. It's so much scarier right now. There's no certainty as to its viability, and it's really just, it's not too big to fail. It is like one bad windfall away from falling apart, and that's unsettling. Like I said again, in that Sports Business Journal article that was talking about the worries about Rugby World Cup in the U.S. Once again, 60% of revenue in rugby comes from England and the UK and France. And France doesn't have a better business plan either. France's business plan is just tax write-offs for billionaires, which is scary. They don't even understand the concept of what's a salary cap and spending money. Like, they just waste money like it's nothing because they got tax advantages off of it. That's wild. They don't even care about a profit. I don't understand how it works whatsoever. But I mean, we need to do better as a rugby community. Like this is why I think it makes me a little bit sad sometimes whenever we see like the MLR and whatnot, and they're just not getting their stuff together as well, because I feel like as a U.S. public, U.S. like sports, we understand how to more or less make sports more profitable, whether we make it politically advantageous to do it or we are able to have the opportunity costs, but we got to make it work. But to follow systems that are literally already broken, it doesn't make sense to me. This is why I also don't really care whenever like UK or South Pacific, and we're not even gonna talk about Super League, and like Super League is borderline dead in the water coming around to it. Like, I don't want to hear from the opinions of anybody in those business. Yeah, the rugby is technically better because just a longer culture of it, but the health of the business of rugby is really poor. And we keep repeating that same mistake over and over and over again. I'm hoping that with the women's elite rugby, they're going to get something else. But speaking of which, the women's side, there was one thing that they said on this, which was a real big positive. And that was ultimately that the women's side might end up being a balancer for a lot of these teams, because there is a renewed spirit in it. Like, whenever your peak audience for your championship game is 1.25 million people, that is horrible for professional sport, especially a top 4, top 5 sport in the UK. Let's say top 3. All right, football, soccer, cricket, and rugby. Let's say top 3. Though I think basketball supersedes rugby, but let's say top 3 in that. 1.25 million. That would be bad for a college game in the US, college football game in the US. That's a little less. That's coming up around what the WNBA does per game. Per game. Not even for the finals. Per regular season smegular game. Like, it's not a good money-making scheme. But they said, like, the women's side, and they might bring another aspect to it. So it's in their best interest to continue to invest in the women's premiership, because that's a different level of ticket sales. That's more merch sales. And the ignoring of that literally is just asking to be set up for the ultimate failure and crashing. Because, like I said, this is wild. Absolutely wild. And people it needs to be absolutely shifted where the mindset is, so that rugby players have a place to be able to grow. And this is how you grow the game. You got to give people that top level. You got to give people that top level, man. Oh, man, it's so aggravating. But let me know what you guys think. Like, looking through, and like I said, I'm gonna post this up on the link in the bio, link in the descriptions, and really give a chance. I'll put it on the website as well too. But yeah, this is one that was really interesting to me overall. I don't think rugby's over, but like I said, it's one bad windfall again away. Like, if another COVID or even half of that, or just a supply chain issue comes in, I don't know if that league maintains itself. I don't know if it's able to hold itself. I am an advocate for merging, and I know we talked about this on the Rugby Odds, and I think the Lizard, Steve Lewis, was like, it wouldn't make any sense because all these leagues have very different objectives and they have different owner sets and mindsets, and it would be counterintuitive. But and they would just be sharing from the same TV pot essentially. But I would say I don't think that's accurate. I think there would be a different vigor that goes with it, because it would be not necessarily just transcontinental, but you would have a more vicious and motivated sets of rivalry. The UK versus France, and put the URC involved. Though I think the URC is actually good on its own. I would rather just a Premiership Rugby top 14 combination altogether. And that one would make the most amount of sense. And I think that would make a much better TV deal, because I think there'd be much more people to watch, especially if you had a championship of the number one Premiership Rugby team versus the number one top 14 team to come together. And maybe that championship game could solve a lot of these money issues that are persisting and have continued on to these days. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think on it, man. I just you know, I just don't know how to further go on that one. It's so unsettling. It's so unsettling.
Don't you love a great ketogenic family? My name is Gifte Belu. I'm here with Health Enhanced Food. I wanted to talk to you about one of our top baking mixes, and that is our ketogenic baking mixes. We got a ketogenic seed baking mix, our ketogenic almond baking mix, and of course, our ketogenic coconut baking mix. Now, what is so important about it being ketogenic? Now, for those who don't know, ketogenic means that it is utilizing low carbs to be able to eat from. The point of it is so that your body will naturally activate burning from your fat and be able to sustain off your proteins, rather than feeding your body carbohydrates and your body simply burning that and you just don't lose weight. And so whenever you're doing that process, it's incredibly difficult. And of course, you're always going to have a craving for wanting to eat the breads and the carbs that you typically would have. With our keto baking mixes, you can have the pancakes, the waffles, the cookies, the cakes, the pizza crust that you absolutely desire without sacrificing the work, your diet, and obviously the results that you are trying to get. All our ketogenic baking mixes are gluten-free, grain-free, plant-based, and absolutely loaded with natural vitamins and minerals. We want to make sure that they are low net carb, they have no added sugar, they are protein rich, they have good healthy fats, But even more importantly, they have a
Low
glycemic level. So for those who are diabetic and you're also still trying to find something, we have the baking mixes that are for you. And I'm sure you're wondering, why make 3 versions of them if they all are basically doing the same thing? Well, we wanted to make sure, as always, that we are trying to specialize to your dietary need. So with our ketogenic coconut, we wanted to give you a version that allows you to have a sweeter bread without sacrificing your diet. But it provides you things that you can make with your cakes, you can make your cookies, but you can be able to not have to lose your mind trying to find things that can satiate the taste without ruining your diet. With our ketogenic almond baking mix, that is one that has probably the highest protein content. It allows you to be able to control your blood sugar levels, reduce your blood pressure, lower cholesterol levels, and of course, it goes to promoting weight loss and being able to control the hunger. And for our ketogenic seed, this is for those who have a nut allergy and they can't take anything like the almonds. So we want to give them still the same thing. You can still make your bread, you can still make your pizza crust, you can still make your cakes and your buns and your muffins, but you don't have to worry about having an allergic reaction. You definitely can go check out the ketogenic line of products at healthenhancedfoods.com. Go ahead, keep up with your diet, get the foods that are necessary to keep you going, and let's get the results that you absolutely deserve. Let's go.